Good morning, everyone. Today, in our series of Meet the Masters, we are going to see Dr. Sakthi. He is a doctor from Lancashire. I'm going to introduce him so that he will explain everything on his own. Welcome, Dr. Sakthi. Please tell a few words about yourself.
So my name is Sakthi Karunanathi. I was born and brought up in India. I did my undergraduate medical degree from Coimbatore in India, and then worked in Kerala with Tata Tea as a general duty medical officer. And then I progressed on to, after providing direct patient care for some time, I progressed on to public health, which is making a difference to thousands and millions of people at one time in keeping them safe, keeping them healthier. Moved on to the United Kingdom and worked in the NHS, and then currently working as a consultant and a director of public health in Lancashire.
That's very kind of you, Shakti. I think you are the most wanted person in the present COVID situation. Are you still practicing a patient contact medical practice, or is it more of an administrative kind of job?
There is no direct clinical care I provide now. I progressed into more leadership roles, but I do deal with individuals when it comes to communicable disease control or answering their questions during the pandemic, for instance. But it's more of a leadership role, working with medical teams and the health teams, as well as wider range of professionals in the local councils and the police and various other private and voluntary sector organizations in helping people during the pandemic.
It's so nice to see you have progressed into a very good managerial post. But having said that, like blessing in disguise, you may feel a bit handicapped that you are not able to see a list of 30 patients, clinic, and one-to-one conversations. But that always happens when we progress and diverge into different fields. Now, let us dive into the main subject, Shakti. So the main reason for this episode program is your involvement in Sky Yoga. In brief, all I know is Sky Yoga means simplified Kundalini Yoga, which makes the very precious, very heritable Kundalini Yoga practice in a very simplified manner so that the public can practice without much restrictions and without any boundaries. What is your view on Sky Yoga? Introduce us, please.
Okay, yoga itself is a very ancient science that is very relevant still in the modern century. And Sky Yoga is simplified Kundalini Yoga, as the name suggests. It is a very simple form of yoga that combines physical exercises, contemplative practices that enables us to continuously improve ourselves, and by doing so, achieve a better understanding of oneself, to take care of oneself as well as their family. And the idea behind that is that by living in peace as an individual, you're able to improve yourself and excel in everything one is engaged in. And through that, bring about harmony within the family and eventually world peace. So Sky Yoga is, in a nutshell, a path to live in harmony with yourself and with the family and the rest of the community, and eventually be a better citizen.
Wonderful. That's very nice introduction for our rest of the episode. Now, please tell us how you got introduced to Sky Yoga. Is it you're aware of it right from your childhood, or is it introduced quite late, or did you practice any other methods of yoga before entering into Sky Yoga? Take us through the history, please.
Okay. In India, when I grew up, we're part of a community which is quite religious and faith-based, and like many children, I lived in a family who are very pious and went to the temple and so on. I have always had questions: is God real? And what's this all about? Prayers, we need to work to get the results, and so on. But as I got older, I did get exposed to meditation, yoga in various forms. But it is my mom who introduced me to simplified Kundalini yoga, and since then, I think this is one of the most secular, non-religious, open to all yoga practice that I was able to find, and it's really good in that sense for me, that it is not you don't have to commit to a particular faith, or you have to live in a particular country for practicing yoga, and it's something that I really liked and started getting benefits from. So that's one of my passions now, to share this with my friends and anybody that who needs it.
Oh, that's very nice. I always believe that for a person to be spiritual or non-religious and also involved in yoga, family parts a very important part of the progression. I think if a man is so good in understanding the yoga, everything, but if the family is not cooperating, he can't progress further. It becomes like a chain in his legs. Tell us about your family, or they gave you green signal from the day one, or you able to convince your family also to take part in sky yoga?
That's a really good question. Um, we both myself and my wife, started learning at the same time. So I guess that made a big difference. But I'd say this, we're all different as individuals. And what is more likely to happen is, if one starts practicing, just because this is not just a hobby, it first of all helps you to look after yourselves and manage your emotions and so on. I find that it is inevitably going to bring a much more sort of peaceful environment because you're able to manage yourself. And I have heard a lot of stories where one person in the family starts and the rest of them get engaged with that. So it isn't a prerequisite that you do it as a whole family, but I think that it is inevitable, or there's a lot of instances where I've seen that the rest of the family also takes up. And it is not a requirement, if you will, to practice as a family, but I guess it does help if everybody around you understand what's going on. And eventually, this is not an add-on. This is something that you do to keep yourselves well, and to perform and to excel in everything that you're doing. So that's how it works for me.
Very nice. So I think take home message from you in this aspect is just do your job, whether it's family or friends, people will look at your progression maybe with envy and they will join us. And if not, give them some space so that ultimately it will happen. What about your children, Shakti? What is your advice in involving the children? At what age they can start this practice?
I mean, Sky Yoga comprises of simple physical exercises, some contemplative practices, meditative techniques. It is there. The physical exercises are there for anyone above the age of 8, so they can stand and follow instructions and so on. But as they grow older, the time they reach puberty, then further they mature, so they are able to meditate and do other exercises. But it is there for anybody over the age of 8 till the end. My children, one of them is older, so he's learned, and our younger daughter, she's very curious, so I'm sure we will introduce. But she's already learned some physical exercises, and as she gets older, I'm sure she wants to learn what their parents are doing. So I think there is also an aspect of setting a role model in the family, and if the children watch the adults at home, and particularly when it comes to not just your own practices in health, but how we behave, how we display our emotions, and I think that teaches our children quite a bit without us even knowing it. So those are all the sort of indirect but wider effects that I think practicing yoga brings.
Very nice. So this will really help people with family to understand what is happening, and they will be very good in deciding how to include the children. That's very kind of you to share this information. Now, I'm going to discuss with you some of my understandings, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, my understanding is any human, whether it's male, female, to be frank, even if you take a living animal or plant, it consists of three main bodies. One is the physical body, which we all can see. You can see my face, my fingers, my hands, etc. The next is the subtle body, which is inside. For example, it helps us to feel. If you see a movie, you are becoming emotional. If you eat a cake, you feel a kind of subtlety. That is the inner subtle body. Nobody can see it, but we can feel it inside. And the third one is the causal body, which is the main link of our body with what is happening in the universe. And that's what makes us to feel when we pray or when we meditate. And I gather Sky Yoga ticks all the three boxes. Say, for example, simplified physical exercise for the physical body, and the simplified Kundalini Yoga, also known as Kayakalpa, for the subtle body, and also the various meditation methods for the causal body. What is your take on it? Am I correct?
Yes. Simplified Kundalini Yoga is a combination of practices, physical exercises, meditation, introspection, and then build your own excellence. And then eventually, the idea is that one is able to realize oneself. The metaphysics of human body is an interesting one when you trace the roots of yoga and compare that with modern science, especially in the sense what you just described, the mind, body, and soul, or consciousness, for that matter. There are our ancient scholars and our ancestors have really, when you dig deeper into the science and how people have documented it, they really have gone to the depths of understanding human body. Admittedly, during the ancient times, they didn't have the scientific instruments and the current scientific knowledge, but through their own observations and experiments, they've largely categorized the human body into the physical state, the mental state, and a deeper soul or a conscious state, or a fractional consciousness of the total consciousness, and so on. And Sky meditation, Sky practices does help one with fitness and physical body and self-regulation and mental states, and then a deeper awareness. And eventually, if one chooses to go on the path of spirituality, it does aid that. So you're right, it has got practices for mind, body, and soul or consciousness.
Thank you very much. And there is no doubt that in the present era, everybody, whether they do exercise or not, they will certainly agree on the point that exercise is a must. And if we start it as early as possible, we can keep our joints and muscles supple, prevent increase in weight, and also maybe maintain youthfulness. Let us now discuss on the exercise part of the Sky Yoga. In what way the exercise of Sky Yoga is different from, say, going to gym and lifting some weights, or running a marathon or 5K? In what way it is different? And if a person wants to take exercise part of the Sky Yoga, how many minutes he need to dedicate every week, or if not every day? What is your take on it?
That's a really good question. I mean, people do think sometimes if I do yoga, I don't have to do anything else, or if I do something else, I don't have to do the physical exercise as part of the yoga. But when you dig deeper into how that's been arranged in the Sky Yoga system, it is for all major joints and all major flows of energy in your body and inner organs. And for instance, exercises for eye. I'm not sure which gym gives us an exercise for eyes. So it kind of covers all aspects of a physical body. Not only that, but also to enable the flow of energy throughout. There are some, self acupressure techniques and relaxation techniques that are part of the Sky physical exercises. That's number one. The second part of that is it doesn't restrict you from doing other things. I do go for a run, and I sometimes walk very long, distances and climb up a hill. And I know friends that do boxing, horse riding, and many other leisure and physical activities. So it doesn't really restrict you from doing other things. But the beauty of Sky physical exercises is that you don't need any other equipment. You can do it till till the end. So sometimes people do think, well, it sounds like very simple. I'm not really exercising, or I'm not really sweating for that matter. And what it involves is, at a much deeper level, it sort of keeps the major joints supple. It keeps the energy flow going throughout the body, and it kind of refreshes you in its totality. And there are many other things integrated within it, like mudras and practicing the breath, which also activates your parasympathetic and autonomous nervous system, which is now being documented in modern science as well. So it's much more than just physically exercising your muscles, and it's a much more complete form of exercise for the body that doesn't just cover the physical aspects or the muscular aspects, but also, breathing and flow of energy, and so on. And it is something that one can do till the end. So it is there right into your older age, as we age. And as we know, as people get older, the chances of them, but even now in such a busy life, or when the weather is not good in countries like where we live in England, sometimes it's not possible to go for a run, or during the pandemic, there has been a total lockdown. So I think using your own body to relax and to exercise is such a great thing to have. And it does has a very rich emerging scientific evidence base of, your, like you said, flexibility and suppleness and strength and balance, and right up to mental practices and cognition and memory and self-regulation, and then the list goes on. So it's a great thing to do, and it doesn't take much time to learn either. So it's surprisingly simple yet very profound.
Very good. I'm going to bring you to the parasympathetic system after discussing the Kundalini Yoga, so that it will make more sense. How many minutes it will take per day, Shakti? What is the advice? We need to do every day or weekly twice? What is the regimen?
I wouldn't say a regimen, but if one learns this, it takes, and one practices regularly, the physical exercises part takes anywhere between 40 minutes to 50 minutes if one has practiced it really well. And so that's how long it takes for doing physical exercises. If you are even really well practiced and so on, it may take around 40-45 minutes. So that's how long it takes. And whilst there is no regimen, the more you do, the more you get practice and the more benefits you get. And that's the way to look at it, and not like a formula, or certainly not like how in some parts of the Western society yoga is developed, which is yoga means rolling up your yoga mat on a Wednesday afternoon in your lycra, going to the gym or something. It is something like preparing, something like brushing our teeth. We do it every day, and to keep us well until the end. We do it every day.
Very nice. So 50 minutes every day, maybe possibly even twice a day, I think people can spare for the benefits of it. I'm going to take you to the next one, which is like the Kundalini Yoga or Kayakalpa, which is predominantly for the subtle body. What is your take on it? Because Sky Yoga is so peculiar and so very clear in the concepts, and also it's a kind of a jewel in the Sky Yoga's preamble, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's a technique called Kayakalpa, which is for our vitality and healthy aging. It incorporates a number of different ancient systems, from physical body, mind, right up to genetic makeup and the flow of energy throughout the body, and an understanding at a cellular level in ancient times, that is. And it's a very simple combination of practices that involves our core muscle and a breathing technique, which can be very easily learned. And when practiced alongside with the limit and method of our diet, the way we sleep, and our work and the way we think and our sexual life. Those are all the 5 sort of core aspects of any human being. And when practiced with the Kayakalpa, it eventually, what I find is it helps you get a better balance, and it maintains the energy levels, and certainly it has been increasingly being documented. This direct relationship with how vital our life energy is, and how we can keep that really active and use that for addressing pain, discomfort, as well as eventually live a disease-free life. And it's certainly something that can be very easily learned as well from an experienced master. So that is definitely a jewel in the on the crown of simplified Kundalini Yoga.
Okay. I'm practicing Kayakalpa, as you know, and I know the Kayakalpa contains at least 3 parts, one in the morning, one in the evening, and one before we go to bed. I know we can't discuss the steps and details more than certain extent in this forum, but maybe at one of the episode we can take it a little bit more in detail so that people who have an interest in it will contact you, and we can spread the good practices outside. Now, since we finished the simplified Kundalini Yoga and the Kayakalpa, I think it's a nice time to discuss about the scientific basis of it. First, as usual, I will let you know what my understanding is, and you can please correct and then enlighten me on us further. I think it's more to deal with the parasympathetic system. We all know as a doctor, and also even now as a layman, that human body contains sympathetic and parasympathetic system. They present even in the animals and other living beings. Sympathetic system is more for the fight and flight and problems what we face, that what gives us a kind of anger, increase in blood pressure, increase in cholesterol, makes your arteries to contract and also platelets to adhere to each other. So overall, it's more for the kind of a very dangerous situations in the life. Man historically has used this a lot because he tend to live in forest, and even in the sleep he should be mindful of presence of snake or predators, etc. But as our life improved, now we are in a more very safe environment. Other than once in a while episodes of thieves breaking our house, we all can very happily and comfortably and safely sleep in our home. So the need for the actual sympathetic system is very low, and that's where the parasympathetic, which is the counter brother of sympathetic, comes into play. My understanding is parasympathetic works exactly opposite to it, relaxing the nerves, relaxing the vessels, makes the platelets to flow free, keeps your mind calm, reduces your blood pressure, everything in the opposite way. And as a doctor, we know the predominant nerve for the parasympathetic is the vagus nerve, cranial nerve turn, which comes all the way from the midbrain, travels all throughout the body, and it ends in our intestine and also the plexus, which are in the pelvis. By doing the Kayakalpa, we are almost like cleansing the neural transmitters and pathway in the parasympathetic system. And also we can touch upon the chakras if you want to take the discussion in that way. And parasympathetic system is also indirectly known as second brain. If your tummy is good, if you are having a good vegetarian diet, if you have a lot of microbiome in your tummy, that helps the parasympathetic nerve endings to have a good reception of the impulses, and that takes good impulses throughout the body. There are a lot of studies which say even for Alzheimer's disease, it all to do with the stomach biome and the feedback from the vagus nerve back to the brain. And even a patient who has got a persistent dental infection, there is a very high possibility of Alzheimer's disease, because the dental infection, the bacteria can be transmitted via the parasympathetic nerve. Not the bacteria as such, maybe the bacterial products, which can lead to Alzheimer's disease in a later stage. What is your take on it, Shakti?
The psychophysiology of yoga is very interesting and very deep and very profound, and more research is coming out these days that explains the mode in which yoga benefits. Overall, yoga practices, which simply put, physical exercises, breathing techniques, relaxation, meditation, or contemplative techniques are the beginning of the yoga practice. And then as one applies that, it's like sharpening a knife, these first 4 steps, and then where we use it really does matter. As you were saying, it has got impact on almost every, well, not almost every system, full stop. It does affect every system in the body in a positive way, from fitness, self-regulation, awareness, and eventually spirituality and a sense of transformation with more life meaning and purpose and so on. But particularly when it comes to the various systems, apart from the musculoskeletal system, one of the major positive impacts is on our autonomous nervous system. We normally understand autonomous nervous system as automatic nervous system, the flight or fright mode, or controlling the flow of hormones, which are all involuntary. But what is documented is through practices like pranayama and also the Kayakalpa exercises that is there in simplified Kundalini Yoga. It provides a better balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. And by doing so, like you were mentioning before, we kind of live, well, we've learned to live as human beings over centuries and millennia, looking for risks in the environment and fighting or flighting mode. But actually, we activate that too much, and that's one of the reasons why we have stress, we have clouded thinking, and so on. And by doing some of the very simple practices, the parasympathetic nervous system activation does balances that out, and eventually it is also linked to the chakras you mentioned. In olden days, the chakras are another way, have been another way of understanding the endocrinal system in the modern science, but it's much more than that in terms of energy centers in the body and how they act as transformers for distributing the energy to various parts of the body. And it's still evolving, the science, because the science has evolved with its own instruments that has got its own ranges to understand and experiment what it can see. Just because science can't see now doesn't mean that science can't see in the future. Like science couldn't see the neurotransmitters and all the brain, the aspects of brain and the links between the psychology and various other parts of our human body. So there is a real increasing evidence on the autonomous nervous system by simple breath techniques and simple exercises, which is amazing when you think about yoga, which is such an ancient practice, is still being discovered, so to speak. And it is certainly linked with increased cerebral blood flow, brain plasticity, Alzheimer's disease that you mentioned, our sense of pain and how we deal with pain generally, and how we manage stress, more awareness of our mind and body. These are all wider range of benefits one can get by practicing simple yoga techniques that can be learned very, very soon from an experienced master.
Fantastic. That almost finishes 2 out of the 3 aspects which we thought we will cover. We have covered the exercises for the physical body and Kundalini Yoga for the subtle body. Now take us through the meditative practices available in Sky Yoga for the causal body. What are the types of meditation? Again, please inform us on the time which is needed, because that's the main rare commodity nowadays.
Okay. See, meditation is understood differently in different cultures, and the nub of that is it is able to calm the state of mind, and it allows one to discover oneself better by bringing down the brain and the frequency of the brain waves, which eventually means that one is able to be more aware. It brings benefits of understanding things better, and also be able to relate to the rest of the world better. And there are a number of meditative practices which needs to be learned from an experienced master, but it is very simple. At the beginning level, there are two main meditative practices. One is your meditation on Agna, and the next one is the Shanti meditation, which is, it's a bit like accelerating your car and learning to brake, so that you can manage your energy levels better. And it is again learned from a master. It can be learned very quickly, and it takes again about 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes to practice meditation. But some people split that to fit their lifestyle. They practice meditation in the morning and do the exercises during the day, and some do that all together. But when done, when both of that are practiced, the ability to understand things gets improved, and therefore the ability to make decisions gets improved. And particularly, there is the brain plasticity, the flow of blood into different parts of the brain, that really helps with preventing mind wandering. In other words, when we are sitting quiet, lots of thoughts come in, and especially when there's quite a lot of stress going on, the mind wanders, the mind is ruminating, and meditative techniques have been shown to stop or slow down that, so one is able to really think well and understand well and relate to the rest of the world well, and eventually make better decisions and excel in one's life. So this is how meditation helps. And there are a number of meditative practices, but at the beginner's level, there is mainly the two, the Agna meditation and the Shanti meditation.
Thank you, Shakti. That gives me a kind of understanding that the meditative practice bridges both the subtle body and the causal body. In the subtle body, we have the Agna chakra. For those who don't know, it is the chakra or the place between the two eyebrows. And the Shanti meditation helps in moving the energy from the Agna chakra to Muladhara. It creates a kind of a balancing act, making sure that energy is not focused in one place. I've come across few people having problems of headache and difficulty in managing in the initial meditative days. So I think in that aspect, if you're doing the Agna meditation every day, at least we can do Shanti meditation once in a week. Maybe Friday is a good day for a kind of a clearance. And pranayama also helps to spread the energy from various chakras and balance it out. So this part of meditative practice, which you explained, is still clinging to the subtle body. While if you take it to the causal body, I think the next few advanced stages of meditation comes into place. So can you elaborate them, please, like Nityananda meditation,
Yes,
Panchendriya meditation?
Thank you. Kundalini is life energy. It's how we manage that. And because it is also associated very closely with a mental state, by meditation, one is able to reduce the frequencies and able to bring the mind to its lowest levels of activation, which is where the Agna meditation takes you. And then as one explores the deeper levels of consciousness, then the advanced techniques, and certainly the Duriya meditation is the opening door for your spiritual journey. And then there are other meditations right up to Duriyadita meditation and various other meditative techniques that helps one to relate better with the rest of the universe. And that's part of the spiritual journey, which eventually leads to one understanding oneself and their place in the universe, and how connected we all are, And eventually that sense of love and compassion blossoms, and therefore the sense of friendship emerges with oneself to start with, and the family, and then the rest of the community and the whole world. And that helps one to remain in an equanimous state of mind, and to relate to others, and to be able to be a better person. And whatever one is doing in their life, one is able to excel in what they're doing. And meditative practices definitely is very closely related to not only your brain state and your brain health, but also your executive functioning or decision-making functioning, and with your ability to understand things better. So those are all the wider benefits of meditation. But this doesn't have to be explained, particularly in a religious context, you see. That is the beauty of, I think, simplified Kundalini Yoga, and our master Shri Vethathiri Maharishi has very magnanimously given to the rest of the world, that one doesn't have to be bound by a particular faith or a religion or even language and nationality, but these can all be learned if you're a human being and if you're alive. And that's in a nutshell what goes on in sky practices.
That's well said, Shakti. If you take Vedanta, for example, it says ignorance is the reason for all the problems. And once a person has knowledge and utilize the knowledge to practice, he can overcome the ignorance and lead a very nice life. Say, as we have discussed now, a person can associate himself with his physical body. A person can feel that, oh, I'm short, oh, I'm dark, oh, my little finger is not looking as good as I expected. So they can associate with the physical body, or they can associate with the subtle body, in which they can feel the energy, which can help them to do the job more, love the family members, love the friends, etc. Or they can associate themselves with the causal body, which means we know that all the causal bodies are linked to each other. Every human being, every living being in this world has got a common connection. Once a person elevates his association to that level, he can't think bad of others, he can't injure someone, and what happens is only the flowing of the love. So I think association at higher levels will also indirectly dissociate us from the painful physical body or subtle body level problems. What is your view on this, Shakti?
That is certainly my experience, which is, one is, well, I am able to first live in good physical health, and I've lost quite a lot of weight. I remain still fit, and I don't put on weight back again in previous attempts, and this will be a common experience for many of us. So one is able to have a better state of mind and a willpower, as well as having good physical health. Like you said, the understanding of human body in its physical form, subtle form, and a more subtle form, if you will, the mind, body, soul, or your physical structures and life energy, and your mental structure as such. And there are more. And how this links with, and this is where it kind of borders, the science is still, I would say, catching up in trying to document this, but this is where science and spirituality kind of merges, and ultimately this is an experiential form of building knowledge. We're not doing that to prove to someone that this is needed or something. This is for our own self. That's how it should be seen. It's not for somebody else's sake, it's for our own sake. And when you start doing that, like you were describing, one is able to relate to oneself and others better. And therefore, a sense of everything being connected emerges. And there is another sense, which is a metacognitive level. So it's not about what your thoughts are, and it's also about understanding where your thoughts might have come from, and you're able to understand and analyze your thoughts, and understand and modulate your desires, particularly manage emotional states like anger, which are associated not just with physical harm, but also mental harm. And then you go beyond oneself. And basically, it's very simple by saying, I'm not going to physically or mentally harm anyone now or in the future. That's it. There's no mantra, there's no tantra, there's no Maya Jala here. And it is a way of how one can choose to live our lives. And that is eventually, I think, what everybody is trying to do. Well, since human beings came to being on the earth, to solve problems, to live without pain, and to treat disease, and ultimately, however much money you have, if you don't have these three things, you can't live a peaceful life. So this is something that is there, very simply put, as a tool for excellence, as a tool for human excellence, that can keep you in good health, but also keep you in harmony with others. And eventually, that's, I think, what everybody's trying to achieve. So that is how this should be seen. This is not about doing a double dog or sitting for 2 hours and leaving everything and going on a spiritual path that doesn't really deal with the real world problems. So if any, I would say Sky Yoga is about achieving excellence in dealing with the real world problems that human beings face. And this is not something that you sort of become and you wear kavi and you leave the home and you leave everything and you think you remain in peace. That is not quite the case. And like we were discussing before, this is very common for all human beings from all parts of the world. So that is what I think unites various philosophies, various lines of thinking and faith and caste and creed, and simply put, this is what unites us as human beings. So if one is able to understand that, and even an inkling of that thought will eventually lead to living life as we all want it. So that is the essence behind it, and there is no need to actively market and sell and all these. No need to be overly commercial about this either. So when I always had this, my mom said to me, and many masters have told me this: when one willingly wants something and follows it with arduous action, without any expectations of results, but work towards excellence and progression, things start to fall in place. And sometimes it takes time, sometimes you achieve the results immediately, but there is a link between all of these things about how we feel and how we think and what we say and what we do and our intelligence that drives us. So put all that together, this is something like, you go to IKEA, you buy a flat pack and it comes with instructions how to build the kit up. It's something like that for, if you want to live a peaceful life, a healthy life, and excel in everything you want to do, then here is some simple techniques. That's how I would describe Sky Yoga. It's an art and a science for human excellence.
Thank you, Shakti. We have discussing now almost for 40 minutes. If you think you have some 10 to 15 minutes more, can we discuss something very interesting subject for the audience before we complete? Is it okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. What is your take on the rebirth, Shakti? Do you believe there is a rebirth, and what is your take on that?
It's a very interesting question. I mean, there are different views about this. What I tend to see is there is a continuity in this universe. There is a very connected form of intelligence that drives everything from the big planets to small creatures to human beings. And we know that the understanding of birth and death and rebirths have evolved over time through what stories people tell. But if you look at it in a scientific way, We live beyond our lives through the genetic inheritance that we leave on this earth, i.e., our progeny and our children. And if you think about what might have happened before our birth, you could trace it back to our parents and ancestors and right quite on. And the science does help in tracing the evolution. So in that sense, yes, we had a previous life, and yes, we will have a next life, but it's not probably what's being told in the stories that you hang around and you cling on and you get born with the same thing. There are some experiences, there is probably something that I don't know, and I will find out. But my understanding of rebirths and deaths and reincarnations is much more grounded in what I experience and I've seen, and being an open mind about, in an open mind about that. And there's no need to be prejudiced against anybody having any particular beliefs, because that's what they believe. As long as it doesn't hurt others physically or mentally, I'm all right with that. And we must continue to be curious about these things. The science as we know it has only evolved in the last maximum 500 years. Human beings have lived on this earth for much longer than that. Surely we can't deny the wisdom that has been built over millennia, just because the way that we understand the current science takes us in a particular path. I think they are compatible, and we don't have to be restricted to a particular metaphysical description of the world as we find it. I think it's much more experiential, and it's much more relational about how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others and the environment. That, I think, sums it up all. It is about living in harmony and balance between oneself, the rest of the society, and nature. When something gets not aligned, and particularly human beings are very prone to really build up a lot of ego and forget the history and be in ignorance, or really only believing what they've heard or seen in their senses, and therefore living in an illusion. Once we get past that stage, which is why yoga helps, one, I think, is able to see much more clearly, much more courageously, and much more compassionately. So that is how I find life, and I think there is something more to be discovered.
Thank you, Shakti. That's really well said. I think since we are in this subject, I will touch the last part of the discussion and then we can conclude this episode. I think once we understand the rebirth, we can also understand the karmas. And my understanding is very simple. There are three types of karmas: sanchita karmas, prarabdha karma, and agamya karma. Our subtle body has got connection to a kind of a big bundle of sanchita karma. Every time the subtle body takes a birth, a good chunk of the sanchita karma is fixed to that subtle body with that physical body, which we can call it as prarabdha karma. Karma means, definitely, it doesn't mean only the bad things, it may be the good things and good karmas also. And as a person lives, he will live that life as long as the prarabdha karma is completely neutralized. By chance, if he produces any good deeds or bad deeds in that life, that produces a new account known as agamya karma, which gets dissolved in the same life or added to the sanchita karmas. Since these karmas are linked to the subtle body, again, I will take you back to the same discussion what we had. If a person associates himself to physical body and subtle body, he will have the association with the karma also. If he's able to follow the sky practices, keep the physical body healthy so that his mind won't concentrate on the knee pain or joint pain, etc. If he keeps his subtle body healthy by practicing the Kayakalpa and making it healthy and able to associate with the causal body, he can slowly dissociate from the karmas. And that's one way, a kind of liberation. What is your view on this, Sakthi? We'll finish with this. I know it's a very deep topic.
I mean, there are more experienced masters and people that realized all these things. But I'll give you my experience so far. See, everything is connected in this world and in this universe. Every action has an appropriate result based on the time and place. This Sanjita karma, Prarabdha karma, and Akamya karma is a way of how our ancestors understood and still understand as human society the impact of our previous actions influencing the current state, if you will. And clearly, it is determined, it's not a straightforward cause and effect. It's a bit like leaving an imprint on anything really, or a memory of the previous memory, even including genetic memory. And whatever we've done since our birth, both of them combined influences the way we think, our character, the way we speak, and our deeds, and therefore that brings about results. Simply put, that is what it is. It's an action results system. Some people call it Sanchita karma, Prarabdha karma, and Akamya karma, which is how Upanishads and various Indian classical thought has evolved in that way. Not particularly in the Western world, but in the Western world, we know every action has equal and opposite reaction depending on the time and place. And it's certainly true that we carry genetic memory, and it is scientifically proven. And it is also certainly true that whatever we've done since our birth has altered the way our body is constituted and the way that we've evolved in our character and our mental state. So in that sense, everybody is unique. And what we do will be determined by our previous experiences and our current ability to understand. And again, this is where the meditation and physical health and all of that kind of fits in, our ability to understand the situation. So that determines our ability to either react, which I would suggest should be decreased, and therefore we should respond rather than react the situation, which eventually gets us the results we want. And clearly there is an element of intelligence here. Not everybody, even twins born develop the same way and get the same results. So this is where the level of intelligence, which is already there to some extent, or our ability to assimilate intelligence is there as a potential, and how we turn that into an active state is where even science is still evolving. But amazingly, precisely enough, our ancestors have documented it through various contemplative practices and sublimation techniques. Very simple, understanding your thoughts, where they may have arose from. And these are all part of current modern medical practice and psychiatric practice in terms of cognitive behavioral therapy and various other psychological support like counseling and so on. But one is able to learn it in a very sort of plain English, sort of layman terms, analyzing your thoughts and understanding your desires and managing your anger and how you deal with your worries in your life. Very simple. So that is what all of this is leading to. The question about Sanchita karma, Prarabdha karma, and Kamya karma is part of the karma yoga system, which gives us the principles for our desires and actions and our expectations. And in a scientific way, it's about dealing with our imprints, genetic imprints, environmental imprints, and our behavioral imprints, and how that determines our mental state and our decision making, and therefore the results that we're all achieving. And put it both ways, this is about excellence again. So what you practice, you get. If you practice well, the results are going to be what they're meant to be, or what you want to achieve. And it is not about knowing or pre-knowing something that's going to happen through yoga. That's actually a myth. Actually, it is about understanding what's more likely to happen. It's more probabilistic rather than deterministic. But clearly, there are a number of factors that determines any event. And as human beings, we are just a fractional state. We are not the total state. So even if we are perfect, there is still going to be a probabilistic element that we can't really attain. So all of this is combined in that way. And it is that is the way that I see it. It has stood me well so far.
That's well said. I think we'll try to complete the session because we have so many things to discuss. We can discuss even for next couple of hours. For the viewers, I have much more burning questions to Dr. Shakti, like what is Maya? Is it possible for one person to bless another person? How one person can influence the other person who is suffering by his goodwill, and also few very interesting things like genetic imprints. But we will try to produce episode 2. And for those who follow Tamil language, Shakti is good in the regional Tamil language also. We will try to produce an episode completely in Tamil also. Having said that, those who are interested in Sky Yoga, we will try to give the information like contact details and the phone numbers to call in the description of this video. Anything you want to add, Shakti, for those who want to enroll in the Skype program?
Yes, if one is minded to excel, there are some simple techniques one can learn, and I'd recommend finding a local Sky Master wherever you are, or contact us. We are living in the middle of a lockdown, so we're a bit restricted in terms of the events that we can organize. But once all this is over, we should be able to help you with full effect. So please do explore Sky Yoga, Vethathiri Maharishi, or Simplified Kundalini Yoga, or World Community Services Center. You search in Google, it will take you to the website. You can explore that, and we can probably put that link on the website here, Ananda, as we upload the videos, so people can explore what's available and what's there to benefit.
Sure, Shakti. I will certainly place as much details as possible in the description so that more people will get benefit from this physical exercises and also the kind of very life-lightening procedures. Hopefully, we'll see you again. We have many good Sky Yoga masters, and I really appreciate Dr. Shakti for volunteering as a first master. We are going to produce a series of Meet the Masters, and this is the episode 1. For all those who are seeing this in